Hey, what's going on, sun chasers? It's a warm, muggy day here today outside San Antonio. We were busy yesterday. We did a workout, did a little bit of exploring, but today might end up being just a recovery day. We're both kind of sore and tired. So right now, just taking the dogs for a little stroll around the park. We really like this place. It's a smaller campground. We're at the Alsatian RV Resort in Castroville, a little suburb outside San Antonio. It's smaller, it's quiet, and we really like it. Concrete roads, concrete driveways and pads. So yeah, quite enjoyable here. Some sunshine would be nice. Sun's trying to peek through right now. That's nice. A little more sun would be even better. But, yeah, so let's go on a little stroll. For people with motorhomes, the campground has these really cool little casitas. You just pull your rig right up to these little buildings, gives you an enclosed kitchen, bathroom facilities, heated, quite nice. You just park your rig next to them and it's overlooking the golf course, overlooking the lake. It's quite lovely. We don't have a motorhome, we have a fifth wheel, so it doesn't really apply to us, but still quite nice just the same. We thought we'd head into the city today, head into San Antonio. There's a Mexican market I've been reading a lot about lately, so we're going to go in and take a look around. Hey guys, slight change of plans. I was thinking we would go check out the market, but seeing as how it's mid-afternoon, might be getting a little late now to take a look at the market. So we're just going to wander around, taking the sights of downtown San Antonio, see if we can find the San Antonio River and the Riverwalk. And actually it looks like we have found the river. So we're going to follow the Riverwalk for a bit. We've heard so much about it. Can't wait to see it up close. This Riverwalk is amazing. These old stone walkways, all kinds of greenery, all kinds of plants, lush bushes alongside the trail. It's awesome. People biking, people running, figures, statues, boat tours. It's very cool. is beautiful. We just finished walking a few blocks, now we're heading back to the truck. And back to the campground we go. Dogs have been by themselves for a couple of hours, so it's about time we got back to them. But I'm really glad we took some time to walk along some of the river. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm sure we'll be back. It's very enjoyable, I must say. Hey guys, today we're doing a distillery tour. Now, this place is a brewery and a distillery. Ranger Creek Distillery. Let's go check it out.
Our glass, which is yours to keep at the end of the tour, so take it home with you and then only drink Ranger Creek out of it at home. This glass, you've got 2 tickets. These are good for your beer samples. The way we do our beer samples is that we have 5 different beers to choose from on the taps right inside this door. And our samples are Texas sized, which means we're going to fill this glass up so you get a nice hearty sample of beer. And then you get to make a decision of whether you want a 3rd beer sample or whether you want to try our whiskey. I recommend trying our whiskey. It's award-winning, super delicious, and we will take it easy on you and actually teach you how to appreciate a nice sipping whiskey today. We do one together as a guided evaluation, and then there are 3 others that you get to try kind of at your own speed. If you choose the whiskey, you will get a red ticket, different colored ticket from your beer ticket. So that means we're going to talk about beer and we're going to talk about whiskey today. We're talking about those 2 things can exist kind of individually, but our favorite stuff is when we bring those 2 sides together, which we can do because they share this fascinating relationship, beer and whiskey do. So we're going to talk about brewing beer. Actually, we're going to talk about making alcohol in general at a high level. Beer, wine, spirits, they all kind of are made similarly at a very high level. And then we're going to get specifically into the beer side and then specifically into the whiskey side. So when you introduce yeast to sugar, it will eat that sugar and convert it over into alcohol. This can happen naturally. You can have fruit on a vine, on a tree, just out in nature, and we have this, what we call wild yeast, the stuff that's floating around us all the time, and that wild yeast can eat some of that sugar and convert it into alcohol in this process called fermentation. You could do this in your kitchen, where if you take a glass of water, you dissolve some table sugar in that glass of water, leave it out on your kitchen counter, and in a few days, that wild yeast in your kitchen will have eaten some of that sugar and converted it into alcohol. And you will have made some weird prison wine type thing in your kitchen. So, the primary grain we're going to use is called barley. This is what barley looks like. It's going to go through a malting process. So you'll hear me call this malted barley or malt or just barley. That all means the same thing to us today. The other main difference when we're making alcohol that we want to drink and not weird prison wine on our kitchen counter is that we're going to control the process so that no bacteria and oxygen is getting in there during the process. Separated from the grain is called wort at this point, W-O-R-T. The wort looks like the beer that you're drinking because the color of beer comes from the grain. So for drinking that Love Strike Cafe, we use lighter colored grains, which is the next ingredient we're going to add are our hops. We have basically a sugar water called wort. It's super sweet. It's not terrible, but it's really, really sweet at this point. So we have to cut down the sweetness, and that's what our hops do. Hops have a bitter component to them. Every beer is going to have at least a little bit of hops in there. But in America, Washington, Oregon, Idaho are the big hop growing regions that grow all over Europe in different places. We tried growing hop vines up our windmill out front, and they fried in about a day. When we make those German styles, we're using German grain, German hops. We even adjust our water to match the water in Munich, Germany when we brew those beers, which we can do with. And if you're a home brewer, you know a lot about how to make whiskey. You just don't realize it. So we were home brewers, me and Dennis and TJ, back when we met, 2006, 2007. We moved to San Antonio. We like to drink craft beer. We went to our favorite watering hole, which was basically the only place you could get craft beer back then, the Flying Saucer. And yeah, we started in November of 2010. We were the first production brewery in San Antonio of this modern era. We had Pearl back in the day. We had Lone Star back in the day. We've had breweries, but they all closed down. And we didn't have any in this modern era. So spirits go through a distillation process to make them high proof. We concentrate the alcohols, we remove some water. We're going to talk a lot about that and why it works today. But they all start off as just some type of agricultural raw ingredient that we extracted sugar and added yeast to. So if we take grapes, we extract the sugar, we add some yeast, we make wine, right? If you then distill that wine to turn it into the high proof stuff, does anybody know what that's called? That is called brandy. You might have heard it called cognac if it comes from a certain region of France, or grappa if it comes from a certain part of Italy.
Okay.
But brandy is basically distilled grapes. So if you like to drink beer and you like to drink whiskey, I just explained a lot about your life, right? And like the light bulb went off in our head. So, we started in November of 2010. We started brewing beer, which we can sell pretty quickly. It takes about 3 weeks. We turn around a beer. And we started making whiskey, which takes much longer because we have to age it in barrels for a period of time. We're going to talk a lot about how long that takes and all that on the tour today. But well, we bottle them and share them with you guys when they're terrible. No one hears about it. We just dump it after that. But it's usually the hoppy beers that don't distill very well because the hop oils, when you distill them, become kind of bitter and acrid and unpleasant. So we're going to leave the hops out of our distiller's beer. And the other main difference is our distiller's beer is still what we call on the grain, which means instead of being a liquid, it's more of like an oatmeal consistency. Other than that, distiller's beer is just beer, and you guys know how to make beer. We take grain, we extract sugar from it, cool it. We don't actually boil our distiller's beer either, but we cool it down, we pitch the yeast. We turn it into about a 9% alcohol, porridgey, oatmeal consistency distiller's beer. So, the distiller's beer is not made for consumption. It's going to go through 2 additional stages that regular beer does not go through. First is going to be distillation, where we turn it into high proof alcohol. We concentrate the alcohols, we remove the water in the grain. And then the final stage is maturation, where we age it in oak barrels for a period of time. That's the alcohol has a lower boiling point than water. You guys know at what temperature water boils? 212 Fahrenheit. Alcohol is going to start to boil at about 173 degrees Fahrenheit. That vapor travels up the column. We'll be able to see it through these sight glasses. It looks kind of like a ghost as it's traveling up there because it is a vapor, which is why they're called distilled spirits, because it looks like a ghost. Vapor travels up the column, over to the condenser, which has cool water flowing through it. The vapor hits the cool piping, condenses back down into liquid form as high proof alcohol. We take important safety precautions like don't smoke while you're distilling. You guys have seen that Moonshiner show? Those guys are just like smoking cigarettes while they're distilling. I'm like, you're just asking to blow yourself up in the face, man. Don't smoke while you're distilling. Clear spirits are fresh off the still. Brown spirits spent some time in a barrel. If it's neon green, I don't know what happened to it. Yeah. Our bourbon is sour mashed. We won't say it on our label. If you come on our tour, you know that it is. It's a very traditional way to make your whiskey. You add some consistency from batch to batch by adding a little bit of the previous batch into the next batch. And the acidity from that sour mash helps with the mash pH, so it's just a nice way for us to kind of naturally extract a lot of good sugar from that grain. Decisions that we made all throughout this process are dependent on what type of whiskey we're trying to make. If we use those processed sugars, which if you watch that Moonshiner show, you see them buying bags of processed table sugar that they're fermenting, it's creating those harsh alcohols that do not taste very good. We don't use any processed sugar. We use all natural sugar from grain. You could ferment your distiller's beer up to 14, 15, 16% alcohol, which is going to create a lot of those harsh alcohols. We do not do that. We keep our fermentation down to 9%, which makes sure we're only creating good alcohols. So after the finishing run, we have what we call White Dog. That is our clear spirit, because everything that gets distilled is clear, right? That's our clear spirit that's going to go into the barrel for the final phase of maturation. It'll pick up 100% of its color from the barrel and most of its flavor from the barrel. It's at this point essentially a corn whiskey, because bourbon's made from corn, right? Which is essentially moonshine, just made with a license. Now everybody that makes bourbon makes White Dog. Not everybody bottles it so that you get to try it, but we do. We think it's super interesting. If you've been to Kentucky or Tennessee or grew up in that area, you might have seen or tried White Dog before, but if you haven't, you probably didn't even know it existed. But this is what becomes bourbon. At this stage, it's not really a premium sipping whiskey. It's a little bit rougher, it's a little less refined, and certainly has none of the color that we expect from a bourbon. We use this as a cocktail mixer. It works great in Moscow Mules and Bloody Marys. Infuse it with some jalapenos, use it in margaritas. We do all that stuff in our tasting room. Super fun. You got a Sonic drink, just pour some in there, you know? It's pretty easy.
Okay, we just finished our brew distillery tour. That was a really good deal. Basically 2 tours in one. We toured a brewery and toured a distillery. Then at the end of the tour, we got 2 beer and 2 shots of whiskey. So overall, that was a pretty good deal.
Could have had 4 shots of whiskey.
Could have had more whiskey. We declined, but yeah, that was an option too. So, no, one of the better tours we've been on for sure. Thoroughly enjoyed that. So Ranger Creek Distillery, highly recommended if you're in the area, if you're anywhere near San Antonio. Yeah, I highly recommend you stop in here, take advantage of their tours on Saturdays 2 until 4 p.m. for $10. Finally, a nice sunny day, glorious, glorious sunshine. We've been cooped up for the last couple of days in the trailer, just kind of laying low, not doing a whole lot. So finally a chance to get out and absorb some of that vitamin D. Just taking the dogs for a walk here right now before we head out this afternoon to explore some more of the city. Thought we would take a look at a couple of the Spanish missions here in San Antonio. If you're anything like me, you may have heard of the missions but didn't know the history around them. But they were established back when this southwestern part of the country was under Spanish control, back in the frontier days, I guess you could say. These buildings were established as a means of spreading Christianity among the Native Americans here from the 17th, 18th centuries. It's pretty interesting. So we're going to go, there's actually 5, the remains of 5 different missions here in town. So we're going to take a look at a couple this afternoon, maybe a couple more later in the week. But that's our agenda for the next couple of days. So we'll be heading into the city shortly, and yeah, so we'll talk more in a bit. Okay, as I alluded to earlier, we're going to go check out the San Antonio missions, starting with Mission Concepcion. Let's go take a look. Just walking around the grounds of our first mission here, Mission Concepcion. It's absolutely fascinating. This is actually the best example, or the best condition of all the missions. It's incredible, and to think that they still hold church services here, that's amazing. So we're going to take a look inside, but it must be really something to see. So that's Mission Concepcion. Absolutely breathtaking walking throughout the building and around the grounds. So we're moving on to the next one. I think there's a couple of others just within a few minutes, so we'll take a look at those as well. Okay, so next up on our tour of the San Antonio missions is San Jose. Just arrived, so let's go take a look around. Wow, this San Jose mission is amazing. It's totally walled in. There's a huge courtyard alongside the building with the stone wall that goes all the way around. So we just wrapped up our little visit with the San Jose mission. These mission sites are amazing to see them up close. And this one here is incredible with the big walled-in courtyard and separate quarters for the Native Americans, missionaries. But I think this will wrap up this video. Stay tuned, and next week we'll continue on with our little tour of the missions. There's 3 more to see, so we'll save those for next week. See you then.